moving into a studio apartment away from my mother-in-law who moved in. Long story short, my boyfriend's mom is poor and had to move into our apartment last month. It was not part of the plan. She ended up here because my boyfriend's brother, the same brother she had been living with, got them both evicted. He had stolen her car and crashed it straight into their apartment complex. It was not just a dented bumper kind of thing, it was bad. He nearly killed someone. Now he is in rehab, which is a good thing, but before she moved in, I sat down with my boyfriend and laid out clear rules. I told him, if your mom is going to live with us, we need boundaries. She must cut off contact with your brother, at least while she's staying here, for his own good and for our safety too. That may sound harsh to some people, I get it, but we had no other choice. His brother was dangerous, not just to himself, but to anyone around him. His behavior had been unpredictable for years. Drugs had stolen the boy he once was, and his mother, she never stopped trying to shield him even when he brought chaos to her doorstep, even after he nearly got her killed. I told my boyfriend that if she kept giving him a safety net, he would never get better. She would keep rescuing him, and he would keep falling right back into his old habits. The only real chance for him to get help was if she stepped back, if she finally let him face the consequences of his actions. My boyfriend agreed, he understood, or at least I thought he did. And when we sat down with his mom, she agreed too. She promised us she would not contact him. She promised she would not invite him over. She even nodded along when I explained why it was important. That was supposed to be the agreement. The first 2 weeks went by quietly. She mostly stayed in the guest room. She cooked sometimes. She seemed thankful. I started to think just maybe this would work. Maybe she really meant it this time. But then I came home from work one evening and everything changed. I opened the door and heard laughter coming from the kitchen. My boyfriend and his mom were standing by the counter, talking about how they took his brother to Golden Corral. They were smiling, joking about how high he was, how he nodded off into his plate of food. I just stood there. I did not say anything at first. I could not believe what I was hearing. They looked up at me like everything was normal. They had not just completely shattered the one rule I had set. I felt my stomach twist. My hands were cold. I walked into the kitchen and said quietly, "You took him out. You brought him out in public like that." My boyfriend shrugged. "Yeah, he seemed okay." I turned to his mom. "You promised, we agreed, you were not going to see him. You said you would not do this." She looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My boyfriend stepped in again. "I know, but it just felt wrong to ignore him. He's in a bad place," I thought. Maybe it was too harsh to cut him off completely. I stared at him. "Then why did you agree to it in the first place?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he looked down and muttered, "I guess I changed my mind." That was when something inside me snapped, not with anger but with heartbreak. I told him, "This is exactly why I made the rule. Because now she thinks she can do whatever she wants. You just showed her that there are no real consequences." He tried to defend it. Putting her on the street just for seeing her son felt too harsh. "But that was the point," I said. "That was the only way to make this work. If she breaks the rules, there are consequences. Otherwise, why would she follow them at all?" I walked out of the kitchen. I needed to breathe. I sat alone in the bedroom for a while. I thought about everything that had led to this moment, about how much I had given up just to keep the peace in this home, about how I never asked for her to live here, about how I made a compromise, one that came with conditions, and now those conditions were being ignored. And then, like pouring salt on a wound, she started making new demands. She stopped doing her share of the chores. She would leave dishes in the sink and then say, "Well, I do not live here for free if I am always doing work. You two pay the rent, that should be enough." That was the beginning of it, the quiet entitlement, the way she slowly started taking more and giving less. She never said thank you, she never offered to help. She just assumed we would pick up the slack, because she knew deep down that my boyfriend would not stand up to her. She had him wrapped in guilt and he could not break free. He would do anything for her, and she knew it. I started to see it clearly. No matter what we talked about, no matter how many rules we set, she would always have the upper hand, because he could not say no to her, and I was the only one fighting for boundaries. I was exhausted. Our lease was coming to an end soon. We had talked about moving, maybe finding a new place closer to our jobs. But then one day she asked a question that made my heart drop. "So where are we moving to?" she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world, as if it was already decided that she would be coming with us. I could not hide my surprise. She blinked. "Yes, I assume we're all going together." I looked at my boyfriend. He did not say anything, and that silence told me everything. After she asked where we were moving to, the room fell into an awkward quiet. I looked at my boyfriend, hoping, just hoping, he would say something like, "We haven't decided yet," or "We're still figuring things out." But he said nothing. His mother went on, as if she had not noticed the heavy pause between us. I just hope the next place has more natural light, maybe something with a little porch. I think that would be nice. I kept my voice steady. We haven't made any decisions yet. She gave me a look somewhere between confused and amused. Well, of course you have. The lease is almost up. We need to be planning. Time goes by fast. That we again. I looked at my boyfriend, who was suddenly very focused on peeling the label off his water bottle. I knew this moment would come. Deep down, I had seen it from the first day she moved in. But still, it hurt. Because now it was clear that she had no plans of moving out, no effort to find her own place, no sign that she was even thinking about it. Somewhere along the way, she had made herself permanent. That night, I sat on the couch with my boyfriend after his mother had gone to bed. The room was dim, lit only by the soft yellow glow of the lamp. I need to ask you something, I said quietly. He looked over. Okay. Are you really not planning to take her with us, or are you just saying that to me now because you do not want to argue? He sighed. I'm not planning to take her, I mean it. But what if she has nowhere to go? What happens then? He rubbed his hands over his face. I do not know, I nodded slowly. That is what I thought. I wanted to be understanding. I knew it was not easy for him. He carried a mountain of guilt when it came to his mother. He felt responsible for her happiness, her safety, even her mistakes. She had raised him on her own after his father left, and that bond was deep. But it was also tangled with guilt, with fear, with memories he never wanted to revisit. I had tried to be patient. I had tried to make it work, but I could feel myself reaching my limit. I am thinking about moving into a studio apartment, I said gently. His eyes widened. Why? Because I need peace, I answered. Because I need to feel like my boundaries matter. Because I cannot keep living in a space where I feel like a stranger in my own home. He looked down again. You are talking like you're giving up on us. I am not giving up on us, I said. I'm giving us a chance. Because if we move together again and she comes with us, it is going to be the same pattern all over again. Nothing will change. I will resent you. You will feel torn, and she will still be calling the shots. His voice cracked. But moving out on your own, that feels like you are walking away. I reached for his hand. I love you, but I also need to love myself enough to protect my peace. I told you when she moved in that this had to be temporary, and it is not just about space. It is about respect, trust. You said we would do this together, but then you broke that agreement. He nodded slowly. I know. For a while, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of the clock ticking on the wall behind us. It felt like the space between us was growing wider, even as we sat just inches apart. The next few days were hard. There was no big fight, just quiet tension. He tried to make things feel normal again, cooking breakfast, leaving little notes, offering to do the dishes, but the air between us had changed. I could feel the distance growing. His mother, meanwhile, acted like nothing had happened. She continued to leave dishes in the sink, ignore the rules, and make little comments. I hope the next place has more closet space, or I saw a place nearby that looked cute, we should go check it out. She never said thank you, not once. Every night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was really holding on to. Was this relationship strong enough to survive, or was I the only one still trying to keep the structure from collapsing? One afternoon, I came home from work to find her watching TV in the living room. My boyfriend was not home yet. She looked up and smiled. Oh good, you're home. Could you do the laundry today? I didn't feel like it. I stood there staring at her, my bag still on my shoulder, my shoes still on my feet. I was tired. I had been on my feet all day, and here she was living in our home rent-free, asking me to do her chores. I set my bag down. Actually, I think we need to talk. She looked confused. About what? About this arrangement, I said. When you moved in, we agreed it would be temporary. We agreed on some boundaries. But lately, it feels like those rules do not exist anymore. You have made it clear that you are not planning to leave, and I need to be honest with you, that is not going to work for me. She blinked. So what are you saying? You want me to leave? I am saying that our lease is ending, and when it does, I will not be renewing it with both of you. I am getting my own place. She scoffed. Wow, so you are just abandoning your boyfriend after all he has done for you? I kept my tone calm. I am not abandoning anyone. I am making a choice for my own well-being. Before she could say more, I walked into the bedroom and closed the door behind me. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had finally stood up for myself. When my boyfriend got home later, she must have told him what I said. Because he came into the room, eyes wide, voice low. You are really doing this? He asked. Yes, I said. He nodded slowly, then sat beside me on the bed. I do not blame you, I looked at him. So what are you going to do? He looked down. I do not know. That night I started looking at studio apartments online, one-bedroom spaces. Just enough for me, somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere I could breathe again. The days that followed felt heavy, like I was carrying a backpack full of stones wherever I went. Every conversation in the apartment was short, every shared meal was quiet, even the walls seemed to echo with tension. I had made my decision. I was going to move into a studio apartment, but that did not make things easier. If anything, it made them harder. There was this silence between me and my boyfriend that was almost louder than words. We were still under the same roof, still sleeping in the same bed, still brushing our teeth side by side in the bathroom. But we were not the same. Not really. Every day I opened rental websites and checked listings. I made notes. I called a few places on my lunch break and scheduled tours. I was serious. I had to be. It was no longer just about setting boundaries. It was about saving myself before I got completely swallowed up in the guilt and confusion that filled our home. One evening, I returned from a studio apartment viewing. It was small, yes, just one room, a tiny kitchen and a window that looked out onto the street. But it was clean, it was quiet, and best of all, it was mine. When I walked through the apartment door, my boyfriend and his mother were in the kitchen. He was helping her with dinner. She glanced up at me and gave me that same half smile she always did. Like nothing was wrong. We were all just one big happy family, but I was not smiling back anymore. Later that night, I told him I had found a place I liked. He sat at the edge of the bed, his back hunched, hands folded. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked softly. I nodded. "I need to." He looked up at me, eyes filled with sadness. "I never wanted it to come to this." "I know," I said. "Neither did I, but it did." We sat in silence for a few moments. Then I added, "It is not just about your mom, it is about us, about what we promised each other. You told me we would set rules together. You told me you would stand by them, but when it came time to hold her accountable, you let them slide." He lowered his eyes. I felt guilty. "I know you did," I said gently, "and I understand why, but that guilt cannot be the reason our relationship falls apart. Because if you keep choosing what is easy over what is right, it is always going to be me who loses." He nodded slowly, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. I do not know how to let her go." "I know," I whispered, "but you have to try." The next morning I started packing. Not everything, just a few things. Books, a box of kitchen items I had bought myself, some clothes I had not worn in a while. I was not leaving yet, but I needed to feel like I had control over something, even if it was just putting things in a box. His mother saw me packing and said nothing at first, but by the third day she stopped me in the hallway. "So you're really going to do it?" she asked. I paused, holding a small box in my arms. "Yes." She folded her arms. "You're breaking this family apart, you know that?" I swallowed hard. "This family broke long before I got here." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than us?" "No," I said calmly. "I just want peace. I want to live in a home where I do not feel like a guest, where agreements mean something. Where I am not cleaning up after someone who refuses to do their share." She scoffed. "You have no idea what it is like to be a mother." "You are right," I said, "but I do know what it is like to be someone who has been trying and getting walked over anyway." She turned away and walked back into the kitchen, shaking her head. But I did not chase after her. I had said what I needed to say. That night my boyfriend and I talked again. "I am sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "for everything." "I know," I said. "I believe you, but apologies do not fix everything. Actions do," he nodded. "I have been looking into shelters and housing assistance. Maybe she can stay with a friend just for a while." I did not respond right away. I knew how hard this was for him. Every word was like lifting a stone off his chest, but part of me still doubted it, not because I did not trust him, but because I had seen this pattern too many times. The guilt would come, the plans would be made. But in the end, she would be right back in his life, in our home, in our way. He reached for my hand. "If I let her stay again, will you come back?" I pulled my hand away gently. "You are asking the wrong question." He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You should not make your decision based on whether I come back," I said. "You should make it because you are ready to stop letting guilt control you. You should make it because you want to build a life that is stable, healthy, respectful." He looked down again. I could see the conflict written all over his face. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I held them back. "I love you, I really do. But I cannot live in a place where I have to fight for basic respect. I will not." And with that, I walked into the other room and closed the door. The next day, I signed the lease. It was not a big moment, no cheering, no confetti, no congratulations from anyone, just my hand holding a pen, a few pages of paperwork, and a deep breath that felt like my first in weeks. I was moving out, not because I wanted to leave him behind, but because I needed to find myself again. The first day in my studio apartment was quiet, too quiet, actually. I sat on the floor with a box of kitchen items beside me and a folded blanket in my lap. The walls were bare. There was no TV, no couch, no sound except the occasional hum of traffic outside the window. The space was tiny, just enough for a small bed, a kitchenette, and a narrow closet. But it was mine, And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. I spent the day unpacking slowly. I put my books on a low shelf near the window. I laid out a rug I had picked up from a thrift store last week. I made tea and drank it sitting cross-legged on the floor, letting the steam warm my hands. There was no tension in the air, no tiptoeing around awkward silences, no invisible pressure wrapping around my chest, just peace. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my boyfriend, "I miss you." I stared at the words for a long time, then I put the phone down and walked to the window. The sky was soft with dusk. A few people walked down the sidewalk below, their conversations distant and muffled. I leaned my head against the glass and let the silence settle around me like a blanket. I missed him too. Of course I did. We had shared dreams, laughter, plans for the future, but love alone was not enough to fix what had broken. Love had to be matched with action, with trust, with the ability to set boundaries and keep them. A few days later, he came to visit. He stood in the doorway, holding a small bag of groceries. "I thought you might need something," he said. I stepped aside to let him in. He looked around the room, taking it in, the simplicity, the smallness, the quiet. He set the bag down on the counter and turned to face me. "I have been thinking a lot," he said, "about everything, about what I let happen." I nodded, waiting. "You were right," he continued. "I let her walk all over us. I let my guilt control me. I thought I was being kind, but I was actually just avoiding responsibility." I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at him. "What are you going to do?" He sat across from me. "I talked to her. I told her she can't come with me when I move. I offered to help her find resources. I even gave her contact info for some low-income housing centers and shelters. She was angry, but I did it." "And do you mean it?" I asked. He nodded. "I do, for real this time." It hurt to hope again. Hope was heavy when it had been broken before. "I want to earn your trust back," he said, "not just with words, but with choices." I stayed quiet, letting the moment settle. "I miss living with you," he added softly. "I miss the way things felt before all this. I want that again, but I know I have to be someone who can protect it, not just say I will." Tears welled up in my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief, from the feeling of finally being seen. "I miss it too," I whispered, "but I cannot go back to pretending. If we try again, it has to be different." He reached across the space between us and took my hand. "I want it to be," he said. We sat there for a while, hand in hand, neither promising too much, neither rushing forward, just two people willing to start again slowly on firmer ground. The next few weeks brought a gentle shift. We began seeing each other more, not as a couple trying to survive under one roof, but as two individuals learning to reconnect in a healthy way. He stood by his decision. His mother found a temporary housing placement through a church program. It was not ideal, but it was a start. He still helped her, but in ways that did not involve sacrificing his own life or our relationship. He set limits. He said no when he needed to, and for the first time I saw him carry himself with a kind of strength I had not seen before. As for me, I began to thrive in my little space. I decorated slowly, one picture at a time. I learned to enjoy eating dinner alone, lighting a candle just for myself, putting on music while folding laundry. I had peace, I had clarity, and I had choices again. Eventually, we talked about the future, not as a given, but as something we could build together if we both kept growing. We took our time, we were honest, we respected each other's space. And that made all the difference. This story does not end with a big reunion or a dramatic goodbye. It ends with peace, with growth, with two people learning to value themselves and each other more deeply. It ends with a quiet studio apartment filled with light and a woman who finally remembered that her voice mattered too.